So today's video starts just like any other. However, today is not about Skyblock, and if you've been watching the channel over the past few months, or maybe you're just able to read the title, you'll know today is not a day for playing Skyblock at all, or even talking about it. It's finally time to visit Andorra. But how do we get from here all the way down to here? Well, to put it simply, Andorra doesn't have an airport. And it does have an airport technically, but it's in Spain. However, no major airlines fly to the airport from the UK. Now you might be thinking, how can you have a country without an airport? The country only has 80,000 population, as I'm sure you know. So best case scenario to fly to Andorra, you've just got to fly somewhere that's relatively close. For example, flying to Toulouse in France, or Perpignan, or maybe even Barcelona in Spain. Now luckily for me, I'd already planned to drive from all the way up here, all the way down through France, almost past Andorra, to all the way down here in Spain. And if you just kind of have a look, I mean, Andorra's kind of on the way. And just to fill in a bit of context for anyone who doesn't regularly watch the channel and might be wondering why on earth are you doing this, well, the whole idea was that once we hit 80,000 subscribers, we'd essentially surpass the population of Andorra, and therefore we'd visit, because why not, I guess? And for those of you who don't know, the main reason why people visit Andorra is to ski. In the GDP per capita scoreboard, Andorra is 14th, not really far behind Dubai, the likes of Ireland, the US. Considering you'd have to go all the way down to 26th to get to the likes of the UK, France, Italy. Who would have thought the place that everybody goes to ski is rich? Anyway, without doxing myself too much, Manchester all the way to Andorra is around about an 18-hour drive. That doesn't account for the part of the drive that you have to cross the English Channel, which would either be on the Channel Tunnel, the train, or the ferry. Now, I have a massive phobia of boats, so the train would be the option for me. Also, I am one of those weirdos who has an electric car. So you've also got to account for charging the car so you don't just run out of battery, you know, randomly. That wouldn't be ideal. Anyway, the plan was to set off and get out of the UK as soon as physically possible, as most people usually do when visiting. And then we would take this route. We drive almost to Le Mans, which a lot of you might know from F1. And we will stay in this place called Alençon. I thought this was Alencon, but supposedly this little squiggly thing under the sea means it's pronounced as an S. You know, the more you know, the more you know. And then the following day, we would have around about 8 or 9 hours to drive all the way down to Andorra, and we would finally be there. So let's see how that went. But just before we do, if you are planning on purchasing anything from the Hypixel store, make sure to use code NITROS. It gets yourself 5% off. You should also join the Discord server. It's linked in the description of this video. We offer slaves and dungeon carries, so if you need carries or want to carry and make some coins, make sure to join. And also make sure you subscribe to the channel. You never know, something similar to this might happen in the future when we hit another milestone. So we started on the journey. You can tell you're in England because number one, we for some reason drive on the side of the road that nobody else does, and also the sky's grey and it looks like it's going to chuck it down. Although after my San Marino experience and driving in Italy, driving in England isn't really that bad. It's just dull. Anyway, we finally made it down to the south of England and we're able to get on the Channel Tunnel. Now for those of you who don't know what that is, it's pretty simple. There's a body of water between England and France. And to cross that, you either take a boat, a car ferry, or the Channel Tunnel, which is basically a tunnel that goes under the seabed that connects England to France. You drive your car onto the tunnel, you park your car, and then the train basically just goes between England and France. It's pretty straightforward. But at the same time, it's kind of cool to think that you're on a train. Yeah, you're under the seabed. A bit weird, but anyway. Now this crossing only takes around about 25 minutes, so it's actually not bad at all. Anyway, after a 3 to 4 hour drive through some very typical French villages, we finally got to our first stop, and in the morning we were ready to set off again. But we're going to time travel. We're going to time travel a bit further into the future where we're closer to Andorra. You know, we can see the Pyrenees in the distance, which is the mountain range where Andorra actually is. We then also had a brief race with a Renault Twingo. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. And as you can see by this ferocious, vicious overtake, you can see it was short-lived. Until we got to a point where we had to basically scale the mountain, or mountains, to actually get to Andorra, and we just kept going up and up and up. Now, you know, earlier when I was saying it might become apparent why there isn't an airport, well, you can start to see why. Andorra is pretty high. It is in a valley, but it is surrounded by the Pyrenees mountain range. It's quite surreal. Now, at this point, we were still in France, but soon we'd be in Andorra. And finally we got to Andorra. What an interesting place this is. And as you can see by the architecture, I mean, it looks kind of just like it would be fit for snow and skiing. You know, not all of Andorra is like this. A lot of the higher bits when you're going down actually into the main village is almost like you're in the Alps. Just looks a little bit strange without snow. But you can now begin to see more and more why it doesn't have an airport. This place is literally in a valley in the middle of mountains. But then eventually we got down into the main village. At that point it was time to sleep, and the next day we would explore Andorra a little bit more. I don't know about you guys, but I was wondering what this massive spike was, so we made it our mission to find out what it was.
Actually in Andorra. That's the Andorran flag.
Now, the official language in Andorra is not French or Spanish, it's Catalan, which is a language that is spoken in the Catalonia region of France and Spain. And of course, well, obviously in Andorra as well. It's a bit of a weird mix of French and Spanish. It's a strange one. For instance, hello is the same as what it is in Spanish. Please is way more similar to French than Spanish. Cheese is also more French than Spanish. But thank you is more Spanish than French. And when you have relatively limited French and Spanish vocabulary, it becomes a little bit confusing. And in a boring turn of events, I believe that this big spike was just a hotel. I don't know what I was expecting. Every now and then you'd look off into the mountains and you'd just see that there's houses halfway up there.
Yeah, just a bit of tax evasion.
But to be honest, Andorra's really nice. It's pretty unique. There's not an awful lot to do when it's not winter, so you can't ski. Also, something I did notice when I was driving is that the traffic lights were quite strange. A lot of the time they were flashing orange, but then at the same time they would have another screen at the side that would display a red sad face or a green smiley face, which I assume would be in place or basically just replace the traffic lights, but they still had the traffic lights. They were just amber and flashing. It was strange. It sounds like I'm making it up because I didn't take a picture of it, I didn't take a video of it, and also when I Google it, it doesn't come up, but believe me, it was there. Also, we came across these pretty interesting statues. It was literally just lampposts with people sat on top of them. Not really sure what to make of it. Anyway, all in all, that was the Andorra experience. That was the 80k special. Crazy number. Even though we weren't there for long, it was a pretty interesting experience. It was very enjoyable. It's a nice place, it really is. Yeah, pretty cool altogether. I guess all I have to say is thank you for 80,000 subscribers and making it possible. And if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.